Now what we're working on with your horse is he likes to bring his head up, and doesn't like to, but he gets a little nervous, and he gets more so a little nervous with the bit. He wants to throw his head up, try to get away from pressure that way. What we're teaching him is how to come off of pressure with his head down and relaxed. So we're working on what I'd call rein management, slowly asking for a change in direction and or for softness, responsiveness to the bit, things like that, and not fighting. Because remember we talked about if you fight with him, he fights back. Or if he fights and you start tugging with him, it's not going to make any progress. So we need to be hands low and slow, consistent in our pressure, no jerking. But let's start with that. We're just going to walk around, change.
To start fighting, not wanting to go the way I want to go, or heading over there.
Yep.
I just take him in a circle until he...
So you're going to hold that pressure. So if I'm going to do an example here, why it's not ideally not going to fight me, but if I am steering, I'm going to go this way. If I pick up this right rein and he starts fighting, and let's just say he's tossing his head right now and he's fighting, I'm going to hold that pressure until he softens his nose slightly, and then I'm going to change directions. I'm going to hold, slide my hand down, change until he drops his nose there, and then I'm going to change again. But if he's fighting and fighting, you can't fight back, so there's no jerking involved. It's going to be holding that consistent pressure, not increasing pressure, holding what you have, okay? Waiting for that fight to go away, because that fight isn't going to get him out of anything. You're trying to communicate to him like, it's okay, I'm going to hold this pressure until you relax. And then once he relaxes and comes off the pressure, he's going to realize, oh, the fight didn't do anything for me. What I should do is pay attention to what she wants, come off the pressure, etc. He tends to want to go towards that gate because that's the way home for him, in his mind. So if he goes towards the gate, absolutely, just pick up that rein like you said, like that right there where he wants to fight, and hold consistent until he brings his nose in the direction that you've added pressure. What's that? It doesn't take much, no. He will respond to super light pressure if allowed to, if you will. But he will also put up a big fight if you start fighting back. Good. Slow him back down to a walk. We just want to be walking right now. Hold that pressure, consistent pressure. Drive him forward until he brings his nose around. That's fight. So don't fight back. Drive. There. So you're adding nice steady pressure, but you're getting all the way back to your hip, and then you can't go any further because you're back here, and I don't want you to come any further back. So if you have to, shorten that rein, and I want his head to do almost that, but that was him fighting it. So I want it to come around and to the side, and then you're going to change direction. Add pressure. So, pressure, more pressure, more pressure. Hold that until he relaxes. Nope, you released right there. Right there, release. Good, now change. Nice. Make sure to release once as long. So, I don't want his head just lowered. I don't want him thinking he can pull the reins out of your hand, okay? It's down slightly and lateral, okay? So here, you look at, like, think about the bottom of his nose coming to his shoulder. It doesn't have to go there and stay there, but I want that motion. Moving forward, I want him, so this is a lot of changing. Like we did it last week. There was this, I'd ask for some softness there, and then I'm going to change direction. And then I'm going to get softness here. Maybe my horse fights it, I hold, and then I release. Lots of changes. Head lower. His head from last week to this week is way different, just standing still. simply. But he's still, you notice, like going up closer to the gate, he still has some of that fight where you can see he wants to reach up and out and kind of wiggle his nose. When he feels pressure, I want him to think down and relax, okay? And then that pressure goes away. Like that should go away the more you do this. Good. Now make sure that opposite rein in this exercise is loose. Perfect. So you're adding pressure, Laurie, and you're releasing without meaning to, and he's not doing anything for you in between. It's pressure or no pressure, and release when needed. Drive him into that. Right there, he gets a release. Now you change. We're not staying on, nope, no, we're not staying on one side in this exercise. For him, he needs more changes, Laurie, because he wants to bring his head up in the middle. So we need to make him think head low always, even when he's feeling pressure from different areas. Hold that. He's just fighting because that's what he's used to. He's used to throwing his nose and getting what he wants. Today, I don't feel like you're asking for a lot.
Afraid to be too hard because I'm trying to.
But what makes it hard? So you don't want to be hard because we're trying to be soft, right? But we're not going to jerk and pull on his mouth. We're going to slide down, add pressure, and ask gently for that nose to come around. Now, if it doesn't, all we're doing is holding pressure. Obviously, light is our goal. I want to ask lightly and get something lightly in return. But if you have a horse that's fighting you and that's not light because he's not been taught to be, we're going to ask light, and then we're going to increase as needed until they give you their face, and then they get a release. And then I'm going to ask light again. And then he might, right there, he gave it to me sooner, and then I got a release. Then I'm going to ask light again. Right there, he didn't give it to me, so I'm increasing until he did. Okay? So it's, I guess balance might be a good word. But I want you to think light, but increase as necessary, and then give it right back when he gives you something.
At least when he stops fighting.
Correct. So here's the thing. That's correct. So you're saying when he stops fighting, you release. Yes and no. If he stops fighting and his nose is way out front, straight ahead of him, nose pointing to the sky, but he's not fighting you, that's not the place to release. The place to release is when he stops fighting and when his nose is down and relaxed. Okay? So there's two things you're looking for. I'm not just getting rid of the fight in him. I don't just want to get rid of the fight in him. I want to get rid of the fight plus his typical high-headed nature. There's not enough pressure. So last week, what we worked through was adding enough pressure and then give it all back to him. What you have right now, I'm going to show it on this side so the camera can see. What you have right now is, I'll show you on this side too, but is a little bit of pressure, but see how much play is in that? When I'm asking for this in particular, I want to add pressure. I want to add pressure and then release once they give it to me. Pressure, then release. Not, this is kind of what you're doing. Right, so he is going the direction you want him to. Good. He's not fighting. Good. But what are we missing? Yes, exactly. He is a hard-headed little pony. He can be. So I want a lot. And I'm asking a lot. I want you to ask a lot of him because I know he can give it to you. And I've done it with him. You've done it with him just last week. He can give it. So he doesn't get off of working, if you will, on just those two things, direction and no fight. I need that third thing. I need that softness because he's so likely to want to fight you. I want him to think the bit means get off of it. That's better already. So one steady pressure, and I can't see him over there, but hold on. Hold that. Not yet. Maybe shorten up on that rein just a hair. Steady pressure. That response, keep holding. You're doing good. I'm just explaining. That response is an I did it, now let me go response. Right there, release him. Good. So he held his head there without fighting for about 2 or 3 steps. That was a good place to release. He wasn't fighting it like that. If he gives you something, I want to reward his tries. There, that was a good release. Pick it right back up. Now ask him to speed up a little. I don't need a sleeping pony right now. I need a working pony. There, nice. What I think we're lacking is drive. Okay, by drive I mean forward movement. I want him to think forward. If you can get him physically working, that gets him mentally working. Horses learn better when they're moving a little bit quicker. Like my little pony wants to be really slow like this. He's not going to learn anything when he's falling asleep. Okay, so if I'm going to do this exercise with him, I'm going to speed him up and get a nice working walk. And then he's going to start giving me his head really nicely because he's thinking about it. He's not sleeping. Okay? Same concept. He'll get it. I've seen him do it really nicely, but when he starts to kind of drag those feet, he's not getting it. This exercise can be started at a trot. However, in your case right now, I just want to do it at a walk. So for anyone watching that would want to try this, you can do this at a trot, and oftentimes I do because it just gets them thinking that much more. So steady pressure with your left rein there. Good, steady. More pressure, Laurie. I want it to be a head down like that, but he has to give it to you before you release and go the other direction. That's the stipulation. Nice. Release. Wait on that. That one, it's a little bit of fight there. This right side, he tends to want to fight a little more. Hold. You're doing good. Release. There. Change. And work your way back up this way. But this is the example Laurie asked earlier. Keep that pressure, Laurie. Good. Will I just keep him on that circle if he doesn't give me his nose right away? Absolutely. This, like I talked about, we're going to be changing directions a lot, but if he doesn't give her anything for 10 circles, then he stays on that stays going that same direction on that circle until he drops his nose. Enough to give him the release, say good job, and then change. So he's giving her a little bit more on the left side. So head, if you pay attention, his head's a little more, his neck and head, is a little more relaxed. Add a little more pressure there. And he's a lot more willing, less fight. Go ahead and release that. That's nice. And let's stop him. So left side for him tends to be a little bit better. Right side, if you pay attention when she goes to the right, you'll notice he wants to pick up that nose and almost turn it out and toss a little bit, and then once his head comes down, he's still tossing. That's just, it can be many things, but that just tends to be, let's just say, his worst side. Like we're right and left-handed, maybe he's just a lot better on the left. Horses can have things they're better on, or an exercise they're better on one side, but then another exercise it might be the opposite side's better. So that's just something to think about. But now last time too, we talked about the hug. What I want Laurie to ask for with her horse that tends to be a little high-headed. Right now, again, he's actually pretty relaxed compared to our last lesson last week. He was a lot more, his nose was in the air, his eyes were wide, just a little bit more on edge. Sometimes that tends to be his personality, if you will. But what I'm speaking of with the hug is essentially in place, asking for him to drop his head, drop his nose, and soften to the bridle. So you apply a little bit of pressure here and you squeeze with your legs like a hug. and they drop their nose and release. When you add leg, over time, doing that exercise by driving him forward into softness, doing this exercise and all the others that I do typically with my horses, this teaches when you add leg that their nose should drop, head should drop, and they think relaxed. Instead of they feel leg and they're like, I need to run as fast as I possibly can with my head up in the air. So we're trying to encourage that when you feel legs, that doesn't mean panic and run and anticipate and all these other things they might think. It means relax, soft. I'm going to ask you something, but it's not going to be something you need to be terrified of, right? In this case, this is a simple, you add a little pressure with the rein so that they don't go forward, especially a horse that doesn't know this exercise. Ideally, I'd love to squeeze my legs, and you see right there how he dropped his nose with a loose rein. So I just simply squeeze. It's almost like I'm wrapping my legs around him like a big hug. My legs aren't that long, but that's the idea. So for you and Obie, what we worked on last time was applying a little pressure, squeezing in the hug, getting him to drop his nose. So he was doing that. I'd like to see it. What he was also doing is he tends to want to back up a little because he feels the pressure from the bridle. So that's something we can fix. So where he associates the hug with standing still, head low, and or eventually going forward when you squeeze means head low as well. Okay, so go ahead and ask that. So it's just gentle applying pressure, and at the same time hug him with your legs. So give a little more of a hug. Wait for that nose to come down. So there you see him want to back up. I want you to keep asking until his nose comes down. There. So that was just a little bit. What we want to get him out of that mindset of is backing, because our backing cue is different than the hug. So he's doing the right things. Yeah, go ahead and walk him forward just to come up a little closer. And we're going to ask again. Stop. Good. So go ahead and hug and a little bit of pressure. Release. So nose came down. I'm going to want more, but we're rewarding him on his tries. Walk him up here. Stop him and then ask immediately. There, release. Good. Very nice. You did a really good job. What I want to help you with, because I know we've talked about how you learn better visually. So we've done this a while ago, but I want to go ahead. I'll hop on your horse and show you so that you can see, and I'll talk you through when I'm adding pressure, when I'm releasing, and what that looks like, so that you can go back and watch it even before you come out to the barn and almost study it. So that I know that helps you, so that you can better yourself, better your hands, etc. Okay? All right, climb off. Real quick, I'm going to ask for a hug first. It's a little squeeze, a little pressure, head down. You can see he kind of lurched backwards a little bit. I don't want my hug to mean back. So right now I'm actually squeezing with both of my legs and he's backing. I don't want that to mean back. But like we talked about, that's sometimes the start of this exercise is when you start to hug with both legs and add pressure to the bit. They think back because that's how they're taught. But that's not what I want him to think. If he's standing still and he drops his nose with a hug and a little pressure, I'll give that back to him, and I'll try to release before he backs up. There. Good boy. And it's just a little bit of pressure. Hug. So I'm squeezing. You see his nose coming down? Good boy. Now, so one more time, and then I'm going to go into our circles. Hug. Nice. Good. So I'm going to squeeze and ask for forward this time. So my seat's going to change. He's going to think head down, which is great. That's what I want. But I also need forward. My seat changed. I'm not just sitting, standing still. Okay. So I'm going to take my hand, my left rein in this case, and slightly raise it, but towards the saddle horn, and release. I'm going the same direction just for a moment to show you guys kind of what that looks like there. Now I'm going to change. Come over here. His right side is his fight side, I guess you could say. He wants to fight just a little bit more. Just slide my hand down, ask for that nose to drop, then release. This is a forward moving exercise. This is not flexing at a standstill or a one rein stop. There's a different way to ask for those things. This is you're driving your horse forward and asking for him to soften his nose laterally and vertically. And this exercise also, over time, helps teach your horse to follow his nose. So like Laurie, Obie used to more so like to go where he wants to go, and he'll take you there. The gates, his friends, anything he wants to do, he wants to go there, right? So when you pick up the rein, in the past, you'd pick up your left rein, for example, and he'd keep going right? His nose is over here, but he's like, the gate's over there. I don't know why we're going this way. So he's way better. Like, he almost doesn't do that anymore. But this exercise helps teach him to keep his body in line with his nose and follow it. And again, this isn't something like you're going to go down the trail riding him this way, right? But it's a nice tool to have if needed, especially let's say if you go out in the field or you have open space and he's being a little pushy, like he wants to pull you where he wants to go. You can go back to this and say, hey, remember, we soften, we go the direction I want to go. So that there's so many good things that come of this, but those are just a few. And the last thing I want to point out, which I just ruined, I guess, his head was lower, a little more relaxed. I'll end with a nice hug, get him to lower his head. But he's starting to kind of slow blink and relax a little more than when I first got on. At first, he was probably a little more like, oh my gosh, what's she going to do? Are we going to work hard today? And I got just a few things I wanted, and I asked for, and he gave them to me. So now we're going to be done. So see, the reactivity too, I just want to point out, to the bridle is what we want to get rid of. So that exercise also helps that. The hug, along with just lifting the reins a little bit, good boy, will help get rid of that. Just lifting the rein simply makes him jerk his head up. So I want to be able to pick the rein up and my horse's head comes down. So I'm not hugging right now. Now I'm going to start there. Nice. So I've done this a lot with my horses. When I pick up the reins, their heads go down, they don't go up. And I don't always hug, but I like that tool to have. So pick up, hug, release. Good boy. One more. I keep saying that, but it's fun to do. That's nice. So again, the hug doesn't always mean head to the ground, but if this kind of overly anxious type horse will give that to me, fantastic. Give that back to him.
That's what yours was doing. As soon as you picked
Yes.
up the rein,
Yes. Good. So that's the idea. Boy, now I'm gonna climb. Good boy. And he kept his head down. Good boy. So that was a great place to end. He was nice and relaxed with me. He lowered his head with a little bit of pressure. And I do want to point out the slobber straps are nice because if you pick up the rein, obviously you can feel it from here when you pick it up. But if you notice that when I pick that up, it moves this strap, which vibrates just slightly, the metal, the bit here, sorry. They can feel that. So when your horses are, you can call them hard in the mouth, it's really hard-headed. When they are that way, they're just trying to get away from pressure. They're not necessarily trying to be mean or rude. They're just like, I don't like this pressure, so the only way I know to get rid of it is to pull that out of your hands, right? So they can learn, even a horse like him can learn when they feel just a little bit of pressure to drop their nose. So just keep that in mind.